Today I'm going to be showing you some of the basic controls you should know when it comes to playing Rematch, because honestly, this game is something that I've been enjoying for the past few weeks since it came out, and it's really fun, and I've learned some of the basic controls you should know, especially as a new beginner, because let's be honest, there's a lot of sweats in the game, and a lot of them do use some of these controls when it comes to playing some of the basic matches. So without further ado, let's get straight to some of the controls you should know about when it comes to playing Rematch. Okay, so let's first look at some of the basic controls, which is going to be your shooting. So we do have RB, which is going to be our main shoot. Now of course you can see you can actually direct the ball, so if I direct it more up, it'll curve up. If I direct it down, it'll curve down, which can be very useful. And let's say I'm in the corner and I want to curve it into the goal. I can just curve it to the right, and it's a good way to basically just get a nice shot in the goal box. It's actually pretty fun, and also you can do the same with the left, and obviously just practice it. It is actually very useful. Now you got that way, but you also got the other way, which is going to be more on the ground, which is using X. Now this is also used to pass your fellow teammates. So let's say I'm running and I'm getting cornered by some other players, I can just direct it and pass it to my other teammates. Which, honestly, that is one way to actually do pretty well in the game. But always, those are the two ways to actually shoot. Now, defense, there is many ways you can actually defend. Now, of course, you can do the usual tapping A strat, which does work sometimes, but honestly, it's easier for players to actually steal away from you. So I don't really highly recommend it unless you see the player is not that good at the game, which sounds harsh, but there are a lot of players that are still trying to understand this game when it comes to the controls. But one of the ways is to use your left B button, which obviously I'm on a controller, so it's going to be this button, and you are basically in more of an attack stance. So now if you do this button mixed with A, you are going to be dribbling, which is actually pretty fun, and you can easily trick some players when it comes to doing the dribble, because obviously I'm just going to kick this away. When you obviously sprint, you do obviously initiate slide tackle, and obviously if you don't sprint, it does initiate a simple, kicking the ball away from the player. So normally when people are doing slide tackling and you dribble, it is kind of funny to watch and it's very entertaining. But yeah, this is how you do basically a dribble. But now going to the final trick to actually kind of just, keep the ball away from other players. Obviously using your RT button with A, which is going to be the kick up, which a lot of players do actually enjoy using, and you can see a lot, which is pretty fun at sometimes. And I mean, if you can spam it a lot, you can basically just keep it in the air away from players, which is kind of funny to do. But obviously if you want to just have fun with friends, you can just do this and then obviously just shoot. But I mean, those are some of the basic controls. But now let's go to some of the more funner tricks you can do. Now first, let's say you want to chip the ball a bit more, especially when it comes to passing. You can use your RT with X, and this will chip the ball. Now this can be useful to get some sneaky shots, or you can just pass it to your teammates in the air. And it's one way you can actually basically, let's say you want to do a special goal, you can just chip it up, and you can do a nice animation to get it in. But that is one way you can actually do another pass in some cases, especially if there's a lot of players on you. So it's kind of useful. But now let's go to some of the things that you might not understand when it comes to playing this game, which is obviously how can you lose the ball when you do sprinting. Now of course when you do standard sprint, you won't lose the ball, but when you do your ultra sprint, it will lose the ball pretty quickly. So I do recommend to not do it too much when it comes to doing your boost sprint. But if you do that, do tap A so you can just keep the ball with you, because if you don't, you'll easily lose the ball to enemy players, which obviously is not the best. But now that you know some of the basics, let's go to some of the more interesting shots you can do, which we call it is basically the backboard. That's when you kick it above and basically you shoot it. So let's say I am here and my teammate is this side. You can just chip the ball up and can do like more of like a easier pass. It basically also tricks some goalies, because obviously some goalies can't reach that, and obviously, and basically, let's say for example you are a goalie, it is hard to basically get some points when it's above. So obviously doing it a bit higher, roughly, let's say that area, wrong spot, my bad. Basically in this following area, goalies can't get that, so they also use that jump, and then you can just easily sneak a shot. So that is something that is very useful to do and does trick a lot of players. Now something I'll definitely say is that a lot of players actually use right now is the walls. Now I've seen this mostly in ranked, which also just shows you that there are more players that actually know this trick. That is, when you play any rematch game, whether you have teammates that you actually can talk to or not, using the walls to basically pass or just get past some players is very useful. So let's say I do X, I can just get past and just sprint and then obviously shoot. That is a very useful thing to do. So don't forget you can use the walls. It is basically in some ways like Rocket League. You have the whole arena to yourself. So try to use the whole area of the game to actually, do decently well in the game. But now let's talk about some of the things you should know about when it comes to being a goalie. And I think we'll just do the goalie practice because that's one of the best ways to do it. So let's just go to our practice and do some of the goalkeeper shots. Now of course, we're doing the practice, but also we've got our main ways to actually keep. So you got your Y, which will basically do your air dives. So obviously you air dive and you catch the ball. Now there are other ways to actually basically block, and that is pushing your B button, which is more of like a slide, which isn't really useful, but it is kind of interesting. But yeah, Y is going to be your main, it's going to be your main button for basically doing some saves. Now of course, I will say you can obviously dive forward, which can be very useful when there's some players close by. You can obviously dive to the sides. And of course, something I will say is some players like me and my cousins, we have done it before, is when you accidentally push Y and you just jump up, which happens a lot. You will see how common it's very easy to have. But it's like when you do your shooting. But depending on the area that you basically direct your control to with your left stick, depends on how much of a dive you'll have with Y. So if you do it more to the left, it's going to be way more to the left. You'll basically just kind of overshoot the save, which happens a lot. So if you do it more to the top right, it will be more of a less jump to the right or less jump to the left. It's basically all depends on how you do your controls. But let's talk about how you can do some of the best things when it comes to basically passing the ball as a goalie to your teammates. So there are two ways. You obviously got where you can blast it to your teammates, which is very useful to go over some players. You got the standard, X, which obviously it's very common. Let's just get the ball back here. You can do obviously the chip, but there is something that is hard to really show in here, and that is that I can't really pick up the ball. But once you do actually pick up the ball, you can use your top right button and X to basically throw the ball at your teammates. And obviously you can also do a header by using the same buttons. Obviously it just depends on how high the ball is when it comes to playing this game, because obviously it will do different animations and sometimes looks a lot better. But let's just do one more control that you should know, and that is to use Y. This is very useful when the ball is a bit high. You can use it to kind of just block the ball. And I mean, if you are going against some other players and they have a goalie, you can basically use Y to block their shots a bit, so you can keep the ball closer to the goal box and makes it easier for you to try to get a goal, which is pretty useful. And I've actually seen this a lot more often, where players actually just come up to the goalies and they try to block the ball, because of course if they do, it will basically just make the shot not go as further, or it will just stay in one stationary spot, which of course that is very annoying, but it's just part of the game. Otherwise, that is everything I can really say that you should know when it comes to playing this game. It is a very fun game. I will say it takes some time to understand the controls, but once you do understand the controls, it is very fun. And I mean, if you have some friends that you play this game with, it's even a lot better. But always tell me in the comments below if this video does help you to understand some of the basic controls when it comes to playing Rematch. But I hope you guys enjoyed. So guys, be safe as always and have a great day. Bye.